Okay, let's go ahead and pray. Almighty Yahweh, we praise you and thank you for all that you do. Thank you for your many blessings. Thank you for the opportunity to gather here today openly, to praise your name, to study your word, declare your truth. I pray that you would bless our time of this study, Father. Pray that it would be your words and not mine, that you would frustrate my lesson where it doesn't agree with you. Pray that you would help us to better walk in obedience to you, to learn better how to understand and defend what you've called us to. We ask this in the name of your Son, Yeshua. Amen.
Amen.
All right, so we are still in the Hall of Faith, which seems like we may be strolling through here for a while.
Hebrews.
If you didn't know, we are in Hebrews. So we've been going through this Hall of Faith in Hebrews 11, which is the nickname for it, because it talks about all the different people that exemplify the faith that the author of Hebrews was talking about before this, talking about the enduring faith that stands up through trials and stands until the end and all of that we've talked through. And we talked about what faith is. And last week, Elijah talked to us about Noah. And just to recap what he said, is the verse says, by faith, Noah, having been warned about things not yet seen, which echoes the beginning of the chapter where it says that history is framed by things not seen. Out of reverence, we talked about the fear. He did something. He wasn't just scared and did nothing. He did something. He constructed an ark because that's what he was told to do, by which he pronounced sentence on the world. So one of the things that talked about was that him doing this, him following what the Father said, took away the argument of innocence from everybody else because they saw him doing it. And if they walked up and asked it, hey, what you doing? He probably told them. So him building that ark for the coming flood was a sentence being pronounced upon the world. Say, hey, it's coming. You got to choose. And by doing this, he became an heir of the righteousness that comes by faith. So that's what we talked about with Noah, that it was faith in action. He was given a warning, and out of holy fear and reverence, he did exactly what he was told. And then he talked about how Elijah talked about last week how anyone could have joined him on the boat. That it's likely that when it says that the man shouldn't only strive for 120 years, they had 120 years to repent. The giants were gone. They were dead and killed. That's what Enoch talks about. So it wasn't the giants that were causing problems. It was the people. So they had 120 years to repent before he flooded the world. And if they'd turned back to Yahweh, then they probably would have made it on the boat. But we know that they didn't. So this week, we begin our study, and I say begin our study, in what it talks about with Abraham. Now, we've already talked about being a servant, and we've talked about not being rebellious. And we've talked about the idea that we're supposed to be a servant of Yahweh and not to be rebellious to the world. It's not about rebelling against the world. It's about serving and being obedient to the Father. And then we talked about because it's not our will, but his that we're doing. But the other side of these things is the word obedience. So what is obedience? And how does it work out in this? That's what I want you to have in the back of your head as we start to look at this, because we're going to look at Abraham and obedience, which is funny because you brought all the hats today. I did not even think about that. I did not plan that. That's all the Father. Just put my hat right up here. But we're going to talk about obedience. But let's go ahead and read our context because we always want to keep everything in context. So if someone would like to go ahead and read.
Therefore, do not throw away that confidence of yours, which has a great reward. For you have need of endurance, so that when you have done the will of Yah, you may receive the promise. For yet in a very little while, he who is coming will come, and will not delay. But my righteous one shall live by faith. And if he shrinks back, my soul has no pleasure in him. We are not of those who shrink back to destruction, but of those who have faith to the preserving of the soul. Now, faith is the foundation of things hoped for, the reproof of things not seen. For by it the men of old bore witness. By faith we understand that history was framed by the word, saying Scripture of Yah, so that what is seen does not happen from things which are visible. By faith Abel offered to Yah a better sacrifice than Cain, through which he was approved as being righteous, Yah approving his gifts. And through faith, though he is dead, he still speaks. By faith Enoch was moved so that he would not experience death. And he was not found because Yahweh moved him. Prior to being taken up, he bore witnesses being pleasing to Yah. And without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he who draws near to Yah must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who seek him. By faith, Noah, being warned about things not yet seen, in reverence prepared an ark for the salvation of his household, by which he condemned the world and became an heir of the righteousness which is according to faith. By faith, Abraham, when he was called, obeyed by going out to a place which he was to receive for an inheritance, and he went out not knowing where he was going. By faith he sojourned in the land of promise, as in a foreign land, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, fellow heirs in the same promise, for he was looking for the city which had its foundations, whose architect and builder is Yah. By faith even Sarah herself received ability to conceive, even beyond the proper time of life, since she regarded him faithful who had promised. Therefore, there were born even of one man, and him as good as dead at that, as many as the stars of heaven in number, and innumerable as the sand which is by the seashore. All these died in faith, without receiving the promises, but having seen them and having welcomed them from a distance, having confessed that they were strangers and exiles on the earth. For those who say such things make it clear that they are seeking a country of their own. And indeed, if they had been remembering that country from which they went out, they would have had an opportunity to return. But now they aspire to a better country, that is a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he prepared a city for them. By faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, and he who had received the promises was offering up his only son, to whom it was said, "In Isaac your seed shall be called." He considered that Yah is able to raise people even from the dead, from which, figuratively speaking, he also received them back.
Thank you. As you can see, there's a lot of Abraham in this chapter to go through. There's a number of verses, so this is why it's probably going to take us a few weeks to get through it. And as always, I try to let the Father dictate where we're going and what we're going to do on it, even if I make plans. And as I started studying, I actually have quite a few verses studied, but as I started putting it all together, I go, whoa, there's a lot here. So we're going to go hopefully where the Father leads, and we're not going to make it very far today. So, by faith, Abraham, when he was called, obeyed by going out to a place which he was to receive for an inheritance, and he went out not knowing where he was going. So, the first question we want to ask in this text is, who is Abraham? So, who is Abraham?
He's the guy that had the name Abram before he was given that name.
Yep.
And he was righteous, which you have to read some other books to find out why.
He was a Chaldean.
He was a Chaldean. Yeah. Anything else you think of when you think of Abraham?
Father Abraham.
That's the song.
Nate
song.
wanted to do that.
I wanted to do the
Wanted
song.
to do that song today, and
I don't know that.
no.
Anything else you can think of?
He got promised. He was called friend of Yah, which is
Yeah.
very, very rare. I don't think there's anybody else called that in the scriptures. And he also was going to be promised descendants as many as the stars in the sky, which I don't think anybody else got that except for his son Isaac.
Yeah, so we know a lot about Abraham, right? People teach a lot about Abraham. It's pretty common. So just to kind of give the lineage from Adam and Eve to Abraham and Sarah, there's your lineage. And then I added in all the wives' names from Jubilees because they did have names. And what's interesting in the note in the bottom right is it's the one between Arphaxad and Sheila is the person Canaan or Canaan. And it's in the Septuagint, it's in Jubilees, and it's even in the genealogy in Luke, but it's not in the Masoretic in Genesis, which is interesting. I don't know why they cut him out, but they cut him out. And then you've got the three wives of Abraham. You had his wife Sarai, her handmaid that he takes as a wife, Hagar, and then after Hagar leaves and Sarai dies, he takes Keturah. All right, so there's Abraham. Just some of the things about Abraham, his father of many nations. There's always the verse talks about he was counted as righteousness, one that causes a lot of issues. Sarah had Isaac, and Hagar had Ishmael. He tithed to Melchizedek. We talked about Melchizedek many months ago. Sacrificed, the sacrifice that they always talk about where he cut the animals in half and he walked through them. And so there's another thing that is commonly taught about him. And then, of course, the test of the sacrificing of Isaac. And then he gets the promise of the covenant and the inheritance. So that's an overview of Abraham, or Abram, whichever one you want to talk about. So let's see what Genesis says to start the story. Now, again, we're not going to read everything about Abraham because we would be here a very long while. But we're going to focus on the first part of our passage where it says that Abraham obeyed and left where he was to go sojourn. So let's read about Abraham. Genesis 11. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah fathered Abram and Nahor and Haran fathered Lot. And Haran died in the presence of Terah his father, in the land in which he originated, in the territory of the Chaldeans. And Abram and Nahor took wives for themselves. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah, daughter of Haran, and the father of Milcah and the father of Iscah. And Sarai was barren, and she was not able to bear children. And Terah took Abram his son, and Lot, son of Haran, his grandson, and Sarai, Abram's wife, his daughter-in-law, and he led them out of the territory of the Chaldeans to go into the land of Canaan. And they came to Haran and settled there. And the days of Terah in Haran were 205 years. And Terah died in Haran. Yahweh said to Abram, "Go out from your land, from your kinsfolk, and from the house of your father into whatever land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. And I will make your name great, and you will be blessed. And I will bless those who bless you, and those who curse you I will curse. And then all the tribes of the earth will be blessed." And Abram went, just as Yahweh told him, and Lot left with him. Abram was now 75 years old when he left Haran. And Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot, the son of his brother, and all their possessions that they acquired, and every individual that they acquired out of Haran. And they went out to go to the land of Canaan, and they came to the land of Canaan. And Abram traveled through its length to the place of Shechem at the high oak. But the Canaanites at that time were residing in the land. And Yahweh appeared to Abram and said to him, "I will give this land to your seed." And Abram built an altar there to Yahweh, who appeared to him. So there's the beginning of the story of his birth and lineage up to them leaving. And now he's traveling around with his wife and Lot and many other people. It's a simple little story. And it's been used over and over and over again as an example of blind faith. Right? Sorry. The idea that Yahweh spoke to Abraham out of nowhere and said, "Go." And Abraham was like, "Okay." And he picks up his stuff and he leaves. And it's an example of blind faith, like the Father says, and you just do it. But is that really what happened? Because as we know, as we've learned, that Jubilees gives us a lot more detail to the story. So let's go take a look at Jubilees and see what it says. Jubilees 11. This is a little bit of a long passage. It's about a chapter and a half. See, all that little time in Genesis, you get a chapter and a half in Jubilees. This is how Jubilees works. And she bare him Terah in the 7th year of this week. And the prince Mastema sent ravens and birds to devour the seed which was sown in the land, in order to destroy the land, and rob the children of men of their labors. Before they could plow in the seed, the ravens picked it up from the surface of the ground. And for this reason, he called his name Terah, because the ravens and the birds reduced them to destitution and devoured their seed. Poor guy, that's his name. I'm going to call you, we're reduced to destitution. Poor guy. And the years began to be barren, owing to the birds, and they devoured all the fruit of the trees from the trees. It was only with great effort that they could save a little of all the fruit of the earth in their days. And in this 39th Jubilee, in the 2nd week, in the 1st year, remember we talked about how you calculate those a couple weeks ago, Terah took to himself a wife, and her name was Edna, the daughter of Abram, the daughter of his father's sister. And in the 7th year of the week, she bare him and all the fruit of the trees from the trees. What? Yeah. All the fruit of the trees from the trees. It was only with great effort that they could... Oh, I got doubled up. Sorry about that. I knew that didn't make sense. And in this 30... In the 7th year of this week, she bare him a son. Let's skip to the 3rd line. Sorry. And he called his name Abram, by the name of the father of his mother, for he had died before his daughter had conceived a son. And the child began to understand the errors of the earth, and that all went astray after graven images, and after uncleanness, and his father taught him writing. And he was 2 weeks of years old. 2 weeks of years is 2 sets of 7. He was 14. He was not 2 weeks old. He was 14 years old. So anyone who is a homeschooling parent and you're worried about your child learning to read and write, Abram was 14. 14. 2 weeks of years old, and he separated himself from his father that he might not worship idols with him. And he began to pray to the Creator of all things, that he might save him from the errors of the children of men, and that his portion should not fall into error after uncleanness and vileness. And the seed time came for the sowing of the seed upon the land, and they all went forth together to protect their seed against the ravens. And Abram went forth with those that went, and was a child lad of 14 years. So now we know our calculations, right? And a cloud of ravens came to devour the seed. And Abram ran to meet them before they settled on the ground, and cried to them before they settled on the ground to devour the seed, and said, Descend not, return to the place whence he came. And they proceeded to turn back. And he caused the clouds of ravens to turn back that day 70 times. And all the ravens throughout all the land where Abram were settled, there were not so much as one. And all who were with him throughout the land saw him cry out, and all the ravens turned back, and his name became great in the land of Chaldees. And there came to him this year all those that wished to sow, and he went with them until the time of sowing ceased. And they sowed their land, and that year they brought enough grain home and eat, and were satisfied. So all these ravens, for many years, keep coming and take all these seeds every time they try to plant. Abram, after calling on the Creator of everything, goes out in the field and says, Go. And the ravens take off. So now it's kind of like hiring him. You go, Hey, Abram, we're going to go plant. Come over to our field. Abram stands there and sends the ravens back. Which is pretty cool. Pretty interesting. And in the 1st year of the 5th week, Abram taught those who made implements for oxen, the artificers in wood, and they made a vessel above the ground, facing the frame of the plow, in order to put the seed thereon. And the seed fell down therefrom upon the share of the plow, and was hidden in the earth, and they no longer feared the ravens. Not only did Abram go out in the field and say, Go away, ravens, he taught them how to make a planter to put the seed in the ground and cover it so the ravens didn't get a chance. He's 14. No, he's 15 now. And after this manner they made vessels above the ground and all the frames of the plows, and they sowed and tilled all the land, according as Abram commanded them. And they no longer feared the birds. And it came to pass in the 6th week, in the 7th year thereof, Abram said to Terah his father, saying, Father, and he said, Behold, here I am, son. And he said, What help and profit have we from those idols which thou dost worship? and before which dost thou bow thyself? And for there is no spirit in them, for they are dumb forms and misleading of the heart. Worship them not. Worship the God of heaven, who causes the rain and the dew to descend on the earth, and does everything upon the earth, and has created everything by his word, and all life is from before his face. Why do you worship things that have no spirit in them? For they are the work of men's hands. And on your shoulders do you bear them, and you have no help from them. But they are a great cause of shame to those who make them, and a misleading of the heart to those who worship them. Worship them not. And his father said unto him, I also know it, my son. But what shall I do with a people who have made me to serve before them? And if I tell them the truth, they will slay me, for their soul cleaves to them to worship them and honor them. Keep silent, my son, lest they slay thee. And these words he spake to his two brothers, and they were angry with him, and he kept silent. So his father was a maker of idols. And Abram says, hey, these don't do anything. Why don't you worship the real God? Stop worshiping them, worship the real God. And it's interesting, his father doesn't say, oh, I didn't realize that. He says, no, I know. But they've put me up here, and if I tell them that, they're going to kill me. And so he continues to make idols. So Abram's...
He's saying, keep silent, my son, unless they slay you.
Right. Well, that's why he says he's not going to do it. They will, to tell them the truth, they will slay me. And then he warns his son, don't say anything, they'll kill you too. Terah's not the best example.
Well, look at his name.
Look at his poor name. But then he tells his brothers, and they're angry with him. So then he just keeps silent. And in the 40th Jubilee of the second week, in the 7th year thereof, Abram took to himself a wife, and her name was Sarai, and the daughter of his father, and she became his wife. And Haran, his brother, took to himself a wife in the 3rd year of the 3rd week, and she bare him a son in the 7th year of this week, and he called his name Lot. And Nahor, his brother, took himself a wife. And in the 60th year of the life of Abram, that is, in the 4th week, in the 4th year thereof, Abram rose by night and burned the house of the idols. And he burned all that was in the house, and no man knew it. So he started burning down the house of the idols. He says, this is an abomination. I'm assuming, I'm paraphrasing here. This is an abomination to the Father. I'm going to go take it out because they won't stop worshiping it. And they arose in the night and sought to save their gods from the midst of the fire. And Haran hasted to save them, but the fire flamed over him, and he was burnt in the fire. And he died in the Ur of Chaldees before Terah his father, and they buried him in the Ur of the Chaldees. So he went in to save his gods and died. I like the fact that Abram didn't set fire to a building that had people in it. They ran in to try to save it, and that's why he died in the fire. And this makes sense because that is the father of Lot. So why do you think Abram's taking Lot around with him everywhere? Because he took him on. I always wonder, why is Lot just hanging around? He just gets to come with him. And Terah went forth from the Ur of Chaldees, and he and his sons, to go into the land of Lebanon, into the land of Canaan. And he dwelt in the land of Haran. And Abram dwelt with Terah his father and Haran 2 weeks of years. And in the 6th week, in the 5th year thereof, Abram sat up through the night on the new moon of the 7th month to observe the stars. New moon of the 7th month. What day is that? It's a day of remembrance. It's Yom Teruah. It's a Feast of Trumpets. On the new moon of the 7th month to observe the stars from the evening to the morning, in order that he would be the character of the year with regard to the rains. And he was alone as he sat and observed. And a word came to him in his heart and said, all the signs of the stars and the signs of the moon and the sun are all in the hand of Yahweh. Why do I search them out? If he desires, he causes it to rain morning and evening. If he desires, he withholds it. All things are in his hand. And he prayed that night and said, my God most high, thou art alone, my God, And thee and thy dominion have I chosen, and thou hast created all things, and all things that are the work of thy hands. Deliver me from the hands of evil spirits who have dominion over the thoughts of men's hearts, and let them not lead me astray from thee, my God. And establish thou me and my seed forever, that we not go astray henceforth and forevermore. And he said, Shall I return unto the Ur of the Chaldees who seek my face, that I may return to them, or am I to remain here in this place? So the reason they left the Ur of Chaldees, they were wanting to kill Abram because he burned down their idols. That's why they left. So he's asking the father, should I leave? Should I go back? Should I stay here? The right path before thee, prosper it in the hands of thy servant, that he may fulfill it, and that I may not walk in the deceitfulness of my heart, O my God. And he made an end of speaking and praying, and behold, the word of Yahweh was sent to him through me, saying, Get thee up from thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy house of thy father. Remember, through me, this is the angel speaking to Moses that wrote Jubilees. So through me, so it was through the angel speaking to Abram. From the house of thy father into a land which I will show thee, and I shall make thee a great and numerous nation. And I will bless thee, and I will make thy name great, and thou shalt be blessed in the earth. And in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curse thee. And I will be a God to thee and thy son, and to thy son's son, and to all thy seed. Fear not, from henceforth, and to all generations of the earth, I am thy God. Yahweh, God said, I am thy God. And Yahweh God said, Open his mouth and his ears, that he may hear and speak with his mouth with the language which has been revealed. For it is ceased from the mouths of all children from the day of the overthrow of Babel. And I opened his mouth and his ears and his lips, and I began to speak with him in Hebrew, in the tongue of the creation. And he took the books of the fathers, and they were written in Hebrew, and he transcribed them, and he began to henceforth to study them. And I made known to him that which he could not, and he studied them during the 6 rainy months. And it came to pass in the 7th year of the 6th week, he spoke to his father and informed him that he would leave Haran to go into the land of Canaan to see it and return to him. And Terah his father said unto him, Go in peace. May the eternal God make thy path straight. And Yahweh be with thee and protect thee from all evil, and grant unto thee grace, mercy, and favor before those who see thee. And may none of the children of men have power over thee to harm thee. Go in peace. And if thou seest a land pleasant to thy eyes to dwell in, then arise and take me to thee, and take Lot with thee, and son of Haran, thy brother, as thine own son. Yahweh be with thee. And Nahor thy brother leave me with me till thou returnest in peace. Struggling with the Old English here. And we will go with thee all together. And Abram journeyed from Haran, and he took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother Haran's son, to the land of Canaan. And he came into Asher, and proceeded to Shechem, and dwelt near a lofty oak.
It said Abraham had books. He was studying. What books is that?
We're going to get there in just a minute. That's a good question. Yep, that's a good question. We're going to get there in just a minute. So, if we do the math, well, actually, here, let's do this. Here's a little bit of a timeline. Because, you talked all about in this Jubilee, in these many weeks, and these years. So, here's a timeline going from the Tower of Babel all the way up to when he went to Canaan. And you'll notice that, according to Jubilees, when does it say he went to Canaan? What year?
He was 75.
According to Jubilees, what does it say? He was 77.
Oh.
So Jubilee says he was 77. Genesis says he was 75. Here's the two together. And Abram went just as Yahweh told him, and Lot left with him. Abram was now 75 years old when he left Haran. This is from Genesis. In Jubilees, it says, And it came to pass in the 7th year of the 6th week that he spoke to his father and informed him that he would leave Haran and go into the land of Canaan and see it and return to him. And then I did the math there for you of the Jubilees. So the Jubilees actually comes back from verse 9 and 12. And then the 6th week in the 7th year, it's 1953. And if you subtract the year of Abram's birth, which is 1876, you get he is 77, not 75. So what do we do with that? In 12:16, it says, and in the 6th week, in the 5th year thereof, Abram sat up throughout the night on the new moon of the 7th month. How old was he then? Then he was 75. So what we have in Genesis, Abram is told to go, and he does. And he's 75 years old. In Jubilees, Abraham is told to go, and he's given the Hebrew language when he's 75. Then he spends time learning and reading, and he waits out the rainy months, and then he leaves when he's 77. So, is this a contradiction? Is this a problem? Does this make us discount Jubilees? Could it be that Genesis is using a rounded time, compressing things into one time set, and then Jubilees is expanding it out? Could it be just using a nice round number? I mean, we've seen this example many times already. If we studied, we go to Jubilees and it fleshes it out. In Genesis, it sounds like, and this happened, we're done. And you go to Jubilees and it's 2 chapters. So what do we do with this? We know it's expand, but could it just be a nice round number? We actually have examples of this in Genesis, in other places. Sure, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, my Genesis 12:4 says, now Abraham was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. That's the same thing it says in Jubilee.
When he departed from Haran?
Mm-hmm. That's what mine says.
Yeah, Genesis says 75. But in Jubilees, it says he's told to go at 75, and then he actually leaves at 77.
Verse 4.
Verse 4 of...
Jubilee.
It is, but
Says Abraham was now 75 years old when he left Haran.
Let's go back. See, I got the whole chapter in here. Keep going, keep going.
Oh, no, Septuagint. I'm sorry. I'm looking at that.
The Septuagint says it, yes. Yep. No, good question. Where was I? Okay, so we actually get an example of this. In Genesis 15, it says, then God said to Abram, know for certain that your seed will be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and they will be enslaved and mistreated 400 years. What's he talking about? He's talking about the time in Egypt, right? When everybody goes into Egypt and they're enslaved for many years. Genesis 15:13 in the Septuagint says, and it was said to Abram, knowing you will know that your offspring will be in a foreign land that it's not its own, and they will afflict it, and they will enslave them, and they will humble them for 400 years. So both the Masoretic and the Septuagint say 400 years. Problem is, in Exodus, it says, now the time that the sons of Israel lived in Egypt was 430 years. And in Exodus, in the Septuagint, it says, now the sojourner of the sons of Israel during which they lived in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan was 435 years. So now we got a 400, a 435, and a 40. But we even get an example in Galatians that says, and what I am saying is this, the law which came 430 years later does not invalidate a covenant previously ratified by God so as to abolish the promise. So Galatians says 430 years. Could it be that Genesis was just rounding off the number? That, hey, in 400 years, it's not saying it's not an incorrect statement, it is in the 400s. So could it be that Genesis was compressing the time event and said, hey, he at 75, he was told to go, and then he went?
I think there's a part where it says that David reigned in Hebron for 7 years. And then there's another part that says he reigned in Hebron 7 years and 6 months. So, there must be something to, at least there, where they are rounding down.
So they're not specifically saying the number.
Same thing with like how many patriarchs came into Egypt. Like the Masoretic text says 70, but then you go to Stephen in Acts 7 and he says 75. You go to the Septuagint, it's 75. So, but it's so close. It's like they may just be going. One's going being very specific, the other one just being okay, basically said.
I think 70,000 years. Some of right.
Well, no,
I think actually 5 of them died before he went in,
yeah.
is what it ends up being. But yeah, it is a similar thing. So I wanted to point that out because I don't want to run from inaccuracies. I don't want to run from things that say, oh, well, hey, this is different. And I just go, oh, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, everything's gonna be
Because if it isn't fine, it's not fine, and we need to figure that out. So that's why I took this side trick here. What's interesting, though, a contemporary thought is that Abraham lived during the time of the Tower of Babel, because it should have been around that time that he was in the Ur of Chaldees and all this stuff. Do you know where that comes from?
That belief.
Yeah, comes from the book of Jasher. So I looked it up to see, and what's really interesting, because it says, if you put the timelines together, and I tried to make this better, it's really tiny, I'm sorry. But if you put all the timelines together, I can send this out later. But what ends up being is Jubilees and Jasher cannot coexist. Now, I'm not saying one is right or the other is right. You can choose that, although I lean on Jubilees, but they can't coexist because Jasher says Abram was around during the time of the Tower of Babel. Jubilees says it was 200 years later he was born. So Jasher can't coexist with Jubilees.
Same thing with the Septuagint. The Septuagint timeline is different than both.
All the timelines are different.
Yeah, the only thing that would be interesting to look at is Abraham and Melchizedek. They counted Levi as being there too because he was within Abraham.
Right.
That's the only way you count that.
Right. That's true.
Abraham was around for the Tower of Babel.
Yeah, because there's supposed to be this whole idea that it was Nimrod versus Abraham, and Nimrod wanted to burn Abraham in the furnace, and yeah, there's a whole lot of story to it. And Esau's the one that killed Nimrod. So, and I don't know when Nimrod dies. There's actually not a lot of stuff in the text. It's mostly in Jasher. So anyway, I had to point that out just because I found that out. All right, so let's go back to our text. So now we have an idea of the timeline and who Abraham is leading up to this point. Let's go back to our passage. By faith, Abraham, when he was called, obeyed by going out to a place which he was to receive for an inheritance. And he went out not knowing where he was going. So I want to stop here. Does it sound like Abraham went out in blind faith?
It looks like he didn't know where he was going.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
Did he have examples of what Yahweh can do and who Yahweh is before it happened?
Yeah, trust God. That's all it sounds. He was already believing. He was already following.
Yep, he was. He was already believing and following.
There was the testimonies of the people who taught him.
Between 14 and 75.
14 and 7.
Probably had some time.
Like, what do you think his mindset was choosing to burn down a place where he didn't get instruction? Like, do you think he was just rebellious, or he's like, maybe God forgive me, or what?
For burning down the idols?
I think it was righteous.
That's right.
I think, yeah, being in the father's household and he knows better, I'm burning. That makes sense.
That's where I'm never going to condone burning anything down, but there are times that it shows it's righteous to go in and burn it all down and rip it all down. Now, again, he didn't kill anyone. They ended up killing themselves. And I want to point that out and again, this is not a disclaimer for me to go and burn things down.
Today you burn it down, though. Probably go.
Yeah,
I'm not burning it.
He had to take off.
he did have consequences. He had to leave. His whole family had to leave. So there was consequences.
Yeah, that's true. You have to.
There was no jail. He's just going to die.
Convicted, so that's all
Right. And you have to be convicted. So, all right. So let's look at, oh, I doubled it up. So let's look at the next word I want to look at, which is the word obeyed. Because Abraham obeyed. And recently we've studied faith and we studied belief and we've studied righteousness. And now I want to look at the word obey. So, what is obedience? What do you think of? What is it to you? Shema.
Hear and do.
Okay.
Acting on what he says.
Acting on what he says.
What I say right away. Good attitude.
That's right.
Even if you don't want to.
Even if you don't want to. But still with a good attitude. Is it an oppressive thing? Can it be?
Yeah, if you're abusing your power.
Depending on what authority you're obeying.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's look at what Scripture actually says about the word. The word is hypoko. Remember, I'm not a Greek scholar. Hupakoo means to obey or listen. 59 times it's used in the Septuagint, 21 times in the New Testament. I found that interesting. There's a different word, I think, for actually obedience. It's a little slightly different because I was like, that's not very many times in the text it's used. But I found that interesting. The root word is akoo, which means to listen. So a great example of this in Mark 4 says, and when they became very afraid, they were saying to one another, who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him? Remember, this is the time they were out on the sea and they were in the boat, and we were talking about last time the worthless piece of wood that would save you. And they were scared and woke up Yeshua, and he's like, why are you scared? You're cowards.
Would they not have had that same writing that said that Yahweh is the one that directs the boat?
Yes, they should have. And so then he stands up and he commands the winds and waves, and they stop. They obeyed him. How about Hebrews 5? Although he was a son, he learned obedience from the things which he suffered. And having been made perfect, he became all those who obey him, the source of eternal salvation, being designated by God as a high priest according to the order of Melchizedek. So what's interesting here? He learned obedience. He learned obedience from the things he suffered. And he became a source to all those obey him, the source of eternal salvation. We talked about this many months ago when we were in Hebrews 5, that he had to learn how to become obedient. He was fully man. He was tempted in every way we were. We had to learn how to become obedient. And now he's a source of salvation for all those who think about him, all those who obey him. So, all right, next verse, Leviticus. But if you do not obey me or observe my commands, but disobey them, and my judgments provoke your soul so that you do not observe all my commandments, so as to turn away from my covenant, then I myself will deal with you, and I will bring against you distress, both mange and jaundice, and infection of your eyes, and illness that wastes away your souls, and you will sow your seed in vain, and your enemies will eat it. That's Leviticus. What is obedience here?
I think we start to forget what's in the actual normal canon of 66.
What'd you say?
Listening and doing.
Listening and doing his commands. Yeah, he's talking a lot about the commandments and talks about if you don't obey, there's punishment. You get mange and jaundice, and the enemy eats your food. So is obedience important here? Pretty important. But then we get these kind of words. Proverbs 29:19, it says, a stubborn servant will not be disciplined by words, for even though he may perceive, yet he will not obey. So what's the difference here? What is obedience here?
They have ears, they do not hear, unless they repent.
They have ears, lest they repent, they don't hear? Is that what you said?
Zechariah, Matthew.
Right. What does perceive mean?
Internalize?
Internalize. That's a good word.
What Terah did, he understood it. He just chose not to.
There's an idea of understanding in there. It's not just, hey, I heard it today. It's an understanding of it. Yet still, they will not obey. They won't act on it.
Jesus said, Matthew said.
Yep. So we get this idea in Proverbs 17. We start to get this idea of listening. An evil person listens to the tongue of the lawless, but the righteous pays no attention to false lips. This is our same word for obedience. So what does it mean they do here?
They're heeding the words.
Heeding the words. That's a good way to say it.
The opposite of paying attention and obeying.
They have faith in the one who speaks.
Right. So they're hearing the words of the lawless and they're doing it. In Proverbs 1, it says, since I kept calling you, yet you did not listen, and I held out words, yet you did not pay attention, but you made my counsel void, and you resisted my reproofs. Therefore, I will also laugh at your destruction, and I will rejoice when your destruction comes. Here's a harsh proverb. This is the writer of the proverb. This isn't, thus says Yahweh, granted. But this is the writer of the proverb.
If he's rejoicing, then it's a sign for us to rejoice with him in that.
Hard words when we read the text, isn't it?
When Bill Gates kissed the bucket, ain't gonna be sad.
No.
That's basically like.
I will laugh at your destruction. And I look, that word is laugh.
Yeah.
And I will rejoice when your destruction comes.
Because they trusted in themselves. I think even when it is God speaking.
Speaking in the Torah, I think he actually says something like that. He says it to Israel. Like, if you go this way, then I will rejoice at your destruction. Paraphrase.
These are the ones that are turning exact opposite,
Mm-hmm.
degrees away from whatever the Father is wrong. So, I mean, it has to be a lot of effort there.
Yeah, and look at the pleading father nature of this verse. I held out the words that you didn't pay attention. You made my counsel void. You resisted my reproofs. Like, he's trying. It's not just like, oh, you're not listening. I'm going to laugh when you get destroyed. No, he is trying to call them back. He is trying to bring them back. That's the Father's heart. He wants that none should perish.
Yeah, you notice that, as you say that since I kept calling, it wasn't like, so I called out one time.
Right. All right, so our next verse, Jeremiah 13. So I will destroy the insolence of Judah and the insolence of Jerusalem, this great insolence, those who are unwilling to listen to my words and have gone after foreign gods to serve them and worship them. They will be like this girdle that is useful for nothing. What is the obedience here? What's going on here?
Unwillingness.
Unwillingness?
I said don't have idols. They want to get idols, so worship other gods.
They're already kicked out of the land. So if they don't repent, they won't be able to go back.
So what words are they listening to?
False prophets.
What words should they be listening to? He says, you don't listen to my words.
The Torah and then the true words of the prophet.
Yeah.
Writing this.
So it's not that necessarily even like Yahweh was speaking to them and saying, you're not listening to what I am speaking to you. He's talking about what was written before.
They didn't listen to what I told everybody.
I told them this. They wrote it down. You're not paying attention. So listening has more to do with just, that's why it's the word obey here, not just listen. They're not hearing the words. They likely should have, well, maybe heard the words read, but they didn't hear them from Yahweh.
Well, even later in that document,
Like Jeremiah writes a letter, then they even burn the letter they write. So they literally just would not have it. Like, they would not even want to listen to it or read it. Like, it's kind of crazy.
You're right. Yep. He just keeps ripping parts of it. He's like, I don't like that one.
Yeah.
I don't like that one. I don't like that one, and keeps throwing in the fire. Daniel 3. And this is from the extra chapters of Septuagint. It says, "For since we have sinned in every way and acted lawlessly by moving away from you, and we have done grievous wrong in every way, and we have not listened to the commandments of your law, neither have we closely observed, nor have we acted according to what you commanded to us, in order that it may go well for us. And now everything whatsoever you have brought against us, and everything whatsoever you have done to us, you have acted in truthful judgment." Everything that's happened to me right now, it's just. You're righteous in it. Do you know what the context of this is? In this manner, therefore, Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael prayed, otherwise known as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And they sang a song to Yahweh when the king commanded them to be thrown into the furnace. And standing still, Azariah prayed in this manner. And when he opened his mouth, he acknowledged Yahweh together with his companions in the middle of the blazing fire, the furnace having been ignited by the Chaldeans very much with fire. And they said, "Blessed are you, O Yahweh, God of our fathers, and to be praised, and glorious is your name into the eternities. For you are righteous concerning all the things you have done to us, and all your works are true, and all your paths are right, and all your judgments are truthful. And you have carried out accurate judgment according to all the things you have brought upon us, and upon your holy city, the city of our fathers, Jerusalem. Because in truth and in justice you have done these things on account of our sins. For we have sinned in every way and acted lawlessly by moving away from you. And we have done grievous wrong in every way. And we have not listened to the commandments of your law, neither have we closely observed." This is Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Do you think they're acting righteously before the Father?
In prayer or deed or both?
Both. Do we get any indication that Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah are unrighteous or not following the way of the Father? But look what they're saying.
Yeah,
They're speaking for everybody.
Interceding for the entire nation. Exactly. Yeah. Which is what Daniel did too.
Think about what's happening to them. They're being thrown into the fire. And what are they doing? They are singing and they are praying and saying, "We deserve it." Even though they don't deserve it. I thought that was just really powerful.
Well, it does say upon
us and upon your whole city. So there's
Right.
the whole group.
So, all of that is obedience always submitting to authority.
the highest thereof. Well, if it goes against whatever the Father said.
You're not going to have to go follow and bow down before an idol that they made. You do not obey them. That's it.
So is it always obedience when you're obeying the authority?
No, not to Yahweh. Only in context of the highest.
Only so if it's not obeying Yahweh, it's not obedience?
He put someone in trouble. Righteous when you obey Yahweh.
Right. Well, I'm not talking about righteous obedience. The word obedience. Does it always pertain to obeying an authority?
And authority of any kind?
Yeah.
Yes. This word
According to the word, it does.
This word.
Seems like it. It used it earlier as listens to a lawless person between a fool and Proverbs.
All right. Let's look. 2 Kingdoms, 2 Samuel. They will cry out, and there is no help from Yahweh, and he did not listen to them. That's our word obedience. Yahweh did not obey them. Right? He didn't hear and do what they said. So obedience isn't always to an authority. How about Acts 12? And when he knocked at the door of the gate, a servant girl named Rhoda came to answer. And when she recognized Peter's voice, because of her joy, she did not open the gate, but she ran in and reported that Peter was standing in the front of the gate. That word answer is our word obedience. Is she under authority of anyone who comes to the door?
It's like the Greek version of Shema.
I think it's the different uses of the word service.
Is she not supposed to go to the door, hear what they want, and do it? Or at least share it? That's obeying. It's not an authority, but it's obeying. How about Genesis 39? And no one in his house surpasses me, and there was nothing removed from me, anything except you, because you are his wife. This is about Joseph. And so how could I do this evil thing and sin before God? And when she was speaking to Joseph day after day, he was not listening to her to sleep with her and be with her. So, did she have authority over him?
Sort of, in this sense. Sort of.
He really had, who had authority over him?
The master.
The master of the house. But so him not listening, him not obeying her was he did not hear, he heard what she said, but he wasn't going to do it. So I want to make sure that we don't conflate the word of obedience to being something that it's not just in the word itself. Obedience is just hearing and doing. You hear something from someone and you do it.
Information with an action.
Gotcha.
Right. It's just information. It doesn't matter if it's evil, if it's good, anything like that.
Input out.
So this brings us to Romans, I think. Yep. This brings us to Romans 6. Do you not know when you go on presenting yourselves to someone as slaves for obedience, you are slaves of the one who you obey, either of sin leading to death or of obedience leading to righteousness. But thanks be to God that though you were slaves of sin, you obeyed from the heart that pattern of teaching to which you had been given over, and have been freed from sin, you became slaves of righteousness. So it's this idea, this is a perfect example of this idea that while when you first obey something or someone, that doesn't mean they're master over you. But if you continue, it may just start out as hearing and doing because it sounds good, it sounds wise, or you gets you what you want. But if you create a pattern of always hearing what this person or artist or music or counselor or anyone says, and you do it, then you've given authority over yourself to them. And you become obedient to them in authority. Or even if it's something you don't need, even if it's something you need to do to get what you want, it becomes the master over you. That doesn't make it wrong to ever do. It's the very definition of it's the very definition of the word Lord. I'm your servant. I'm your slave. You are my master. Anything you say, I will do. Anything you say.
They're talking.
Oh, anything you say, I will hear. I hear you, and I will do it. I will obey. If Yahweh is this master, then it's righteousness. If it's pleasure, fame, fortune, sin is your master, then it's leading to death.
Like mammon.
Yeah.
Would be like
But then
Right. It can be something.
You're God,
Right.
and you've given yourself away from the one that is actually the supplier of life.
Right. So I wanted to flesh out this word obedience. And I've always, like I said before, that I go where the Father takes me. And that's why I love to do verse by verse, because it takes me places I would not have gone or I did not necessarily choose to go. And one of the places it took me to is 1 Peter 3. It says, for in this way, in former times, the holy women also, who hoped in God, used to adorn themselves, being subject to their own husbands, just as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord. You have become her children if you do good, not fearing any intimidation. What do we do with this verse? Let's look at the context of it. 1 Peter 3, 1-4. In the same way, you wives, be subject to your own husbands, so that even if any of them are disobedient to the word, they may be won without a word by conduct of their wives, as they observe your pure conduct with fear. Your adornment must not be merely external, braiding the hair and wearing gold jewelry, or putting on garments, but let it be the hidden person of the heart, with the incorruptible quality of a lowly and quiet spirit, which is precious in the sight of God. So the context, what is the context laid out here in verse 5 and 6?
Even if your husband is being disobedient, he can be won over by the obedience of the wife, the conduct of the wife.
Mm-hmm.
You know, quiet spirit, Chicago.
Quiet spirit.
We need new wind.
Fresh.
A fresh wind. I'm sorry.
So then what does that tell us about Sarah? It tells us, he mentions that Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord. You have become your children if you do good. So she called him Lord. And it says, you've become her children. Well, how do you become the children of Sarah? What does it say?
Doing the deeds of
Doing the deeds. If you do good. Right, that's exactly where I'm going. What is Yeshua's statement? If you are Abraham's children, you would do the deeds of Abraham. In 44, he then says, you are of your father the devil. You want to do the desires of your father.
right.
So, conversely, if we take that then, and we go back, lost myself in my notes.
You got to actively be thinking, sin, I have to do that today. I have to follow whatever the enemy wants done, rather than what the Father wants done.
Right. But so if we take this back and we take this same statement, it says that you have become children if you do good. How do you become children of Sarah? What did she do? She obeyed.
Authority structure.
And she called her husband what? Lord. And what did we just describe the word Lord means? Anything you do, you say, I will do. I don't get to tell you no.
I mean, kind of in context, it says that the husband is being disobedient.
Agreed. So I wrote this note because it came up. I studied this and I wrote this section and I was tempted multiple times to soften it. Because every time I've ever heard a pastor preach one of these sections, they give you about a 15-minute disclaimer, completely eroding any foundation or structure that they have on that point. Because how can I wanted to excuse it, because how can I as a man be up here and demand obedience for wives to their husbands?
Because the man's responsible to the Father.
The man's responsible to the father. Now, like you said, this does not allow...
Gets the axe if children go something wrong. Go ahead.
Right. This does not allow a godly husband to be a tyrant over his wife. He has his own statements of what he must do. And I have my own statements of what I must do. But we don't get to make what others do what is right. All we can do is what is right for us, what is obedience to the Father. So the text says, as much as the world has tried to soften this text, the text says submit, not just honor, not just encourage, submit, obey, and call him Lord. We talked about what does it mean to be Lord. So the text of this says, men, your role is to show honor, be understanding, not exasperating, not being a tyrant, leading her as a servant of holiness and righteousness, and giving up all your own desires. Thank you. Right? That's what we are to do as men and godly husbands. It's not about our will. It's not about our desires. We are to be servants. We are to be living in understanding. We're not to be exasperating, not to be a tyrant. But ladies, your role is to obey him. Not every man, not any man. This is not a you have to obey every man. There are denominations that do that. This is the one that you have made a vow to. And even if he is not a believer, even if he's being disobedient to the Father, you are still to obey him. And this isn't a case of sound wisdom where, hey, I hear it. Yeah, that sounds good. I'm going to do it. This is submit, be subject, and Lord means authority. So you hear and you do. Not because you hear it and you think it's wise to do it, but because he is an authority over you and you hear it and do it. because Yahweh has put him in authority over you, not because he earned it.
So do you think women who marry godly men and their godly husband becomes unequally yoked, they still have to listen to him?
According to this text, absolutely.
I think Second Peter I had last week said something that ended with, and those who despise authority. We forget all authority of any kind. The Father put
Right.
what we put together.
Yeah, the goal is still to win the husband over with the wives.
Yeah, exactly.
With, with the wife. But
The Father opens his heart. Kind of thing.
yeah, if a man is like beating a woman or something, I think that's a little different.
Well, that's grounds
Yeah.
pretty much in this country for
Divorce. Yeah.
Adultery. Nehemiah would have played.
But it's, yeah, Nehemiah would have laid hands on him. Laid hands on him.
I like Nehemiah.
Well, the wording here seems like
I completely forgot what I was going
no
to say.
matter what the husband is doing, the wife never compromises.
Compromises her own character, though.
Correct.
So
That's what I was gonna
That's not
say.
word, so she's not necessarily going to argue with him all the time. Just like, you know what? I'm just going to obey God.
God, even if you're not going to.
But it's exactly.
With
With
her
her actions, you contradict the Father, she would not do
Right.
that.
Absolutely.
The highest authority in that.
That was where my brain was going, and I forgot. Yeah, the woman is not to do things that are sinful because the man commands them.
Right.
Your obedience is still to the Father. But if it's not sinful, you're to be obedient.
Because I see that happening like on Torah
Groups online, like some women, like they're anonymous. They'll say like, my man's going this way, but he wants me to do this too. It's like, no. It's like, yeah. It's like, well, no, you're not supposed to do it.
Right.
That's where you can't just say like, no, I'm not going to do that. It's not in any way breaking the text or the scripture, because you're just keeping yourself holy before God, even if He's not going to. So, right.
Shekinah just said this is a good message. She feels vindicated.
Women be arguing me. It's, I mean, come on.
See, that's what I mean. I don't get to run from these verses. And like I said, I really did. I deleted this multiple times. And I'm like, no, I can't run from it. That's what it says. But what about, there's also that part at the end.
Have you got the other verse on it says to be subject to them in the Lord?
It's not in the text.
No.
It's not in the text, I don't think, in the Lord.
Are we gonna get there about the books Abraham was reading?
We are.
Okay.
We got to get to Abraham's obedience. Sorry. This is why we're not making it very far today. Because we had to dive into obedience. But what about that last part? It says, not fearing any intimidation. So what do we do with that? Because now, as I've said before, the NASB and the LSB capitalize things when it believes they're a quote. So let's go look at the quote. Proverbs 23:24-26. For if you sit, it will be without fear. And if you sleep, you will go to sleep sweetly. And you will not be frightened by intimidation when it comes, nor an assault of the ungodly when they come. For Yahweh will be over all your ways, and he will plant your foot so that you may not be moved. So this part isn't about needing to stand up and not allow yourself to be controlled, is it? That's not what this quote is about. This isn't a statement of rebellion. This is a promise that walking in the Father, you do not need to be afraid. Which includes, so this is a promise, walking in his ways and being obedient to him, which includes being obedient to the husband. You will be blessed and have nothing to fear, even when fearful things happen. That's what he says. So, let's look at the idea of Abraham's obedience. We saw Sarah's obedience. Let's look at what the text says about Abraham being obedient. Genesis 16:2. Sarai said to Abraham, look, Yahweh has prevented me from bearing children. Go in, therefore, to my maid, so you may have children from her. Abraham listened to her voice. And Sarai, the wife of Abraham, took Hagar, the Egyptian, her maid, and Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan. She gave her to Abram, her husband, as a wife for him. Abraham obeyed his wife. Does it mean he put her in authority over him? It means he heard something and said, that sounds like good wisdom. I don't know why, but he did. He heard something and said, I think that sounds like good wisdom, and he did it. So conversely, and this is maybe not the best example of it, but it's not that as a husband, we never listen to our wives. I get to tell her what to do all the time. She can never tell me anything. That's not right either. Remember why the Father made the woman. Genesis 2:18. Yahweh God said, it is not good that human is alone. Let us make a helper like him. So God laid a trance upon Adam and put him to sleep, and he took one of his ribs and filled up the flesh in the place of it. Yahweh God built the rib that he took from Adam into a woman, and he led her to Adam. And Adam said, now this is bone from my bones and flesh from my flesh. She will be called woman, because she was taken from her man. For this reason, a man will leave behind his father and his mother, and will cleave to his wife, and the two will become one flesh.
Just a note, I've seen a lot of
things that say that word rib is not good.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's another whole story.
Let's not dive into that one right now.
dive into that.
So it does not, so she is my helper. My wife is my helper. It does not give me license to just run just as a tyrant over her and never listen to her. Because let me tell you, many times the Father speaks to her and gives her wisdom, and I go, oh, yeah, that was right. So she's my helper. Oftentimes she'll have wisdom on things in me. She was given as your helper. Now, she does not have authority to rule over you. You choose to hear and do what she says, but you don't have to. So see the balance there? And in a sense, and by the word, you can obey your wife. Not in authority, but because you choose to hear what she says and does it. Something simple. Hey, can you get a casserole pan out? Yeah, I can do that. I don't look at her and go, you don't have authority over me.
Get behind me. That would not end well.
No, it will not end well, nor is it scriptural. But even in larger things. Anyway, so I wanted to make that point out as well, so you don't think that I'm trying to
My dad watching.
put women down. Your dad's watching?
He said, I just told your mom she had told baby. But she said she never read that part.
Sounds about right.
All right, we got to get out of this. All right, next verse. Genesis 22. What else does it say about Abraham being obedient? I will indeed surely bless you, and I will surely increase your offspring like the stars of the heavens and like the sand from the seashore. And your offspring will inherit the cities of their enemies. And in your offspring, all the nations will be blessed because you obeyed my voice. Abraham returned to his servants, and they got up and went to the well of the oath. And Abraham settled at the well of the oath. So what does it say here? What is this verse saying about obedience?
There's a blessing.
A blessing?
Only received from obedience.
Yeah, it's only received from obedience. Does it say that he heard it and he was blessed? Does it say he believed it and he thought it really strongly to be true and he was blessed? It says he was blessed because he heard what Yahweh said and did it. Genesis 26, and I will increase your offspring like the stars of the heavens, and I will give your offspring all this land, and the nations of the earth will be blessed by your offspring, because Abraham, your father, this is Isaac, obeyed my voice and kept my ordinances and my commands and my decrees and my rules. So Isaac settled in Gerar. Again, to Isaac, we hear Yahweh say, because Abraham obeyed. Let me tell you, this was part of our initial journey into re-understanding the Bible and coming to the idea that the law is still applicable. It's because I was doing a study on Abraham for Sunday school, and I kept reading over and over and over, because you obeyed, because you obeyed, because you obeyed. The Father kept renewing the promises conditionally. Because you obeyed, here's the promise continuing. Because you obeyed, here's the promise continuing. I go, wait a minute. That's not what I've been taught. But that's what the text says. He didn't just get chosen and he got it. Because that's what we're taught about Abraham. Abraham believed and he was counted as righteousness. So the father said, Abram, yep, you. And he gives it to him. No, he says, I'm going to give you this if you do this. So what did he do in his obedience?
Everything.
Ordinances, commands, decrees, and rules.
All summed up to obey my voice.
Obey my voice. I started word study and all those different words. They're used so interchangeably. I couldn't, like, I've heard a teaching that one of them pertains specifically to the appointed times and one of them pertains to, I couldn't get there. So we're just going to leave it at these four. All these different things. Take them how you want to take them and do the word studies on your own. But what does it mean that Abram obeyed Yahweh? The modern interpretation says, Yahweh said, go from your country, name him Isaac, and take your son Isaac and go sacrifice him. So Abraham heard what Yahweh said and did it. That's the modern interpretation of Hebrews 11:8, that Abraham obeyed. Because one of the things he did. Father said, go out to this country, and Abraham obeyed and did it. But in that modern understanding, there's things that we miss of what Abraham did, even in the canon. Abraham built an altar there to Yahweh. Every male of yours will be circumcised. Take the ram and offer it as a whole offering. You will not take a wife for my son Isaac from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I live. Every single one of those is from the Torah. This is pre-Moses. 400 to 435 years, as we discussed earlier, before Moses on the Mount Sinai. Build an altar there to Yahweh. Exodus 20 says, you shall make an altar out of earth for me. Every male of yours will be circumcised. Leviticus 12 says, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. And I'm cutting down the verses really small, I know. Take a ram and offering as a whole offering. Leviticus 1 says, present an unblemished male for a whole burnt offering. Genesis 24 says, don't marry from the Canaanites. Deuteronomy 7 says, and you shall not take his daughter for your son. It's all the same. All these things are the same. Abraham obeyed the Torah. He obeyed the law of Yahweh. But you could make the argument that Moses copied what Abraham did. So Abraham was told it, so Moses followed it. And that's true, you could make that argument. But when we add in Jubilees, we see a different picture of this obedience. Jubilee 6, for this reason it is ordained and written on the heavenly tablets that they should celebrate the Feast of Weeks in this month once a year to renew the covenant every year. And this whole festival was celebrated in heaven from the day of creation till the days of Noah, 26 Jubilees and 5 weeks of years. And Noah and his sons observed it for 7 Jubilees and 1 week of years till the day of Noah's death. And from the day of Noah's death, his sons did away with it until the days of Abraham, and they eat blood. But Abraham observed it. And Isaac and Jacob and his children observed it up to thy days. And in thy days the children of Israel forgot it until ye celebrated it anew on this mountain. Remember, this is the angel speaking to Moses on Mount Sinai. They forgot it. Until then, what does that sound like? Think about the Sabbath. What is the command of the Sabbath? Remember. Remember the Sabbath day to make it holy. 6 days you shall work and do all your work. Could that be just, oh yeah, don't forget this? Or it could be that they forgot it. Remember the Sabbath day. Jubilees 12. I'm lost in my notes. Where did I go? So it's an indication that maybe it's not that Abraham copied it or Moses copied it. It's that Abram was already doing it, and then they forgot it, and so then they started again. But let's dig into it deeper. Jubilees 12:17. And a word came into his heart, and he said, all the signs of the stars and the signs of the moon and the signs of the sun are all in the hand of Yahweh. Why do I search them out? I know this is a repeat. If he desires, he causes it to rain morning and evening, and if he desires, he withholds it. And all the things are in his hand. And he prayed that night and said, my God, Most High, thou alone art my God. And thee and thy dominion have I chosen, and thou hast created all things, and all things that are the work of thy hands. Deliver me from the hands of evil spirits who have dominion over the thoughts of men's hearts, and let them not lead me astray from thee, my God. Establish thou me and my seed forever, that we not go astray henceforth evermore. So, Abram looks up into the sky, the stars and the moon, and says, this is over here, and this is over here, and the moon's kind of like this, and he starts to try to figure it out. And he stops himself because a word comes into his mind. It says, why am I trying to figure this out? You made it all. You're the one who controls it all. I'm going to talk directly to you. So he calls out to God. Notice he was trying to divine the things in the stars, and then says, no, Yahweh is in charge. Deliver me from the evil spirits. That's what he says at the end. Let them not lead me astray from thee. So what happens? What does Yahweh do with this request? And Yahweh God opened his mouth and his ears, that he may hear and speak with his mouth, with the language which has been revealed, for it has ceased from the mouths of all the children of men from the day of the overthrow of Babel. And I opened his mouth and his ears and his lips, and I began to speak with him in Hebrew, in the tongue of creation. And he took the books of the fathers, and these were written in Hebrew, and he transcribed them, and he began from henceforth to study them. And I made known to him that which he could not understand, and he studied them during the 6 rainy months.
Repent. The veil over the law of Moses will be lifted.
The veil will be lifted. So what does Yahweh do for the request? He gives them the tongues of Hebrew. He gives them the writings. Something interesting is Yahweh doesn't say he teaches him to read or write. He just opens his mouth to the language, which I found interesting because what happened when he was 14? He was taught how to write. So when he's 14, he was taught how to write, not Hebrew. And then now that he's 77, 75, he's taught again how to write. Whoops, went too far. So Abraham already knew how to read and write his own language at 14. So he gives him the writings of the Father in Hebrews. Whose writings? Whose writings did he give him? Did he give him Genesis?
Probably the writings of
Enoch?
Enoch.
Was it his father's writing? Was it Terah's writings?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Especially the name like that.
So let's look at the writings. He gave them to the books of his fathers. Remember, we read when we talked about Enoch in Jubilees 4, and he was the first among men that are born on the earth who learned writing and knowledge and wisdom, who wrote down the signs of the heaven according to the order of the months in a book, that men might know the seasons of the years according to the order of their separate months. And he was the first to write a testimony, and he testified to the sons of men among the generations of the earth, and recounted the weeks of the Jubilees, and made known to them the days of the years set in the order of the months, and he recorded the Sabbaths of years as we made them known to him. And what was and what will be, he saw in a vision of his sleep, as it will happen to the children of men throughout the generations until the day of judgment. And he saw and understood everything and wrote his testimony and placed the testimony on earth for all the children of men for their generations. It seems like Abraham might have had a lot to read.
6 months. Depends on what he's doing himself.
Yep. But who else do we have before him? We also have Noah. And in First Enoch, when we talked about the writings of Enoch, that some of them were not from specifically Enoch. They've just been compiled into a book for us. One of those sections is the book of Noah. Because in chapter 67 of what we have is First Enoch, it switches, and all of a sudden Noah starts talking in the first person. So it seems like it's his book. So it says, and in those days... Uh-oh. In those days, the word of God came unto me, and he said to me, Noah, thy lot has come up before me, a lot without blame, a lot of love and uprightness. So you can see in this passage, it seems like this is Noah writing. So we have the writings of Noah in the book of Enoch. But we also have the writings of Noah in Jubilees. And in the third week of this Jubilee, the unclean demons began to lead astray the children of the sons of Noah, and to make them err and destroy them. And the sons of Noah came to Noah their father, and they told him concerning the demons which were leading them astray, and blinding and slaying his sons' sons. And he prayed before Yahweh his God, and said, God of the spirits of all flesh, who has shown mercy unto Yahweh has saved me and my sons and the waters of the flood, and hast not caused me to perish as thou didst the sons of perdition. For thy grace has been great towards me, and great has been thy mercy to my soul. Let thy grace be lift up, my sons, and let not wicked spirits rule over them, lest they should destroy them from the earth. And do thou bless me and my sons, that we may increase and multiply and replenish the earth. And thou knowest how thy watchers, the father of these spirits, acted in my days. And as for these spirits which are living, imprison them, and hold them fast in the place of condemnation. And let them not bring destruction on the sons of thy servant, my God. For these are malignant, and created in order to destroy. And let them not rule over the spirits of the living, for thou alone canst exercise dominion over them. And let them not have power over the sons of the righteous, from henceforth and forevermore. And Yahweh our God bade us to bind all. And the chief of the spirits, Mastema, came and said, Yahweh, Creator, let some of them remain before me. Let them hearken to my voice, and do all that I shall say unto them. For some of them are not left to me. I shall not be able to execute the power of my will on the sons of men. For these are for corruption and leading astray before my judgment. For great is the wickedness of the sons of men. And he said, let the 10th part of them remain before him, and let 9 parts descend into the place of condemnation. And one of us he commanded that we should teach Noah all their medicines, for he knew that they would not walk in uprightness, nor strive in righteousness. And we did according to all his words, and all the malignant evil ones that we bound in the place of condemnation, and a 10th part of them that we left, that they might be subject before Satan on the earth. And we explained to Noah all the medicines of their diseases, together with their seductions, how we might heal them with herbs of the earth. And Noah wrote them all down, all things in a book, as we instructed him, concerning every kind of medicine. Thus the evil spirits were precluded from hurting the sons of Noah. And he gave all that he had written to Shem, his eldest son. He loved him exceedingly above all his sons. Noah has writings. Noah has a book of medicine. Man, I wish we had that book.
Is that what the pharmaceutical companies use?
I don't, maybe the wrong way. Maybe they use it the wrong way. But we see here that Noah had other writings, at least a book of medicine. So we see that Noah's writings in the book of Enoch, and we've got this book of medicine, and maybe even more. And just so it's clear, and we're not making things up, Jubilee states it explicitly. And do thou, my son, observe his commandments and his ordinances and his judgments, and walk not after the abominations and after the graven images, after the molten images, and eat no blood of all the animals or cattle or any bird which flies in heaven. This is Abraham talking to Isaac, I believe. And if thou dost slay a victim as an acceptable peace offering, slay ye it, and pour out its blood upon the altar, and all the fat of the offering offer on the altar with fine flour, and meat offering mingled with oil, with its drink offering, offer them all together on the altar of burnt offering. It is a sweet savor before Yahweh. And thou wilt offer the fat of the sacrifice of thank offerings on the fire, which is upon the altar, and the fat which is on the belly, and all the fat of the inwards and the 2 kidneys, and all the fat that is on them, starting to sound familiar. And upon the loins and the liver shalt thou remove, just like Leviticus, the long lobe of the liver, together with the kidneys, and offer all these for a sweet savor acceptable before Yahweh, with its meat offering and with its drink offering for a sweet savor, the bread offering unto Yahweh. And eat its meat on that day and on the second day, and let not the sun on the second day go down until it is eaten. And let nothing be left over for the third day, for it is not acceptable, for it is not approved. And let it no longer be eaten, and all who eat thereof will bring sin upon themselves. For thus I have found it written in the books of my forefathers, in the words of Enoch, and in the words of Noah.
And they rewrote it.
He rewrote it? Yeah.
That book of medicine, you know.
I've heard of things like when people want to ward off your spirit for you stage or something, maybe they picked that up from somewhere along the way. Or maybe they're off base, I don't know.
And also, just for, St. John something that was supposed to do the same thing.
Yeah, some of it maybe some of those things that we hear may be witchcraft. Some of those things may be what Yahweh intended. It's kind of hard to tell the difference now.
And the righteous
Sometimes,
didn't need it in the first place. So.
yeah, and the righteous didn't need it because remember, this was to stop all the demons that were tormenting them. It was to stop their diseases and their seductions. So we have the words of Enoch and the words of Noah. So he did all these things. So, in fact, look at all the things that Abraham is shown doing in Jubilees that are the law of Yahweh. He observes the Feast of Weeks. He keeps the covenant festival after Noah's descendants corrupt it. He rejects astrology and idolatry. He learns sacred writings in Hebrew. He ties to Melchizedek. He does the circumcision on the 8th day, circumcises Isaac on the 8th day. He has a celebration of Sukkot. He obeys in the binding of Isaac and the sacrifice, or the testing of that sacrifice. He keeps a 7th day festival every year. He's found faithful and he's a friend of Yahweh. And then he tells Isaac, I can't read small.
He kept Yahweh's will and commands.
Yeah, he kept all of it, just like it says in Genesis. He kept the ordinance, the commands, the judgments, and his sacrificial laws, the blood law, and salt covenant. Later generations even say the law of Abraham commanded his children. So it's more than just he heard exactly what the Father said and did it. And Sirach gives us plain English, simple, easy to understand. Abraham was a great father of a multitude of nations, and none has been found similar in glory, who kept the law of the Most High and came to be in a covenant with him. This is 400 some years before Mount Sinai. He kept the law of the Most High. So, not just individual commands. Abraham kept the law of the Most High. So, back to our verse. By faith, Abraham, when he was called, obeyed by going out to a place which he was to receive for an inheritance, and he went out not knowing where he was going. So, the conclusion for today, because that's as far as we're going to make it, he heard what Yahweh said. He read what Yahweh had written. He did what he heard and read from Yahweh. And this is what it means when it says Abraham obeyed. Now, this is just the beginning of our hall of faith for Abraham. We've got a lot more to dig into. But remember, we talked about the idea is faith is action. As we said so many times, and Elijah spoke on it last week, obedience is action. Faith has to do with obeying what the law of Yahweh says, following his law. So when scripture says that Abraham was obedient to the Father, it's not just that he heard a random word and did it. He obeyed the law of the Father. Any last questions, thoughts?
The only thing I would, on that last one, was when you had looked at the stars, I know that was probably trying to look into the future of what was going to happen and all that stuff. But as far as using the stars as signs, that's the only way that the three wise men made it over the sign of Yeshua was born. So there's benefit in using the constellations that way.
But remember, he said he was trying to discern the rains and stuff.
Like
He was like, what's the season's going to be like this year? Yeah. Yeah, no, the Father absolutely gives us signs in heaven. Absolutely. Probably in ways that we just don't understand anymore.
Well, yeah, it takes a while. That's why they were wise.
Yeah, they were wise.
Or they probably learned from Daniel.
Or they knew the constellations so well that they saw a star that didn't look right.
Yeah.
That's a new one. What's that?
Let's go and check it out.
All right, any other thoughts? Is there any applicable comments? I've heard it said you're a slave to anything you cannot say no to. I would agree with that. In fact, the Father tells us that we are supposed to be slaves of Him, slaves of righteousness. That again is another modern mainstream problem that, oh, you need to be free. No, we're supposed to be servants. We're supposed to be slaves to the Most High.
Be a servant of something.
Yeah, you're going to serve something.
Says Christ was a slave to the Father.
Yep, He was a slave to the Father.
I'm gonna just make sure I get that pan if she asks me.
What?
Just make sure I get the pan if she asks me.
That's it. That pan is important.
That's right. All right. We'll go ahead and go to time of prayer. If you have anybody who's online, thank you for joining us. If you have anything we need to pray for, please go ahead and throw it in the comments. We'll make sure and pray for it. Thank you for joining us today. I hope it was a blessing to you. We'll see you next week.